For February 24th, 2022, I am Aaron Schatz, editor-in-chief of FootballOutsiders.com and your beloved host, coming slightly differently than usual because my awesome broadcasting ring light died on me today. So if it seems like I'm broadcasting through the shadows, it's because I am. Mike Tanier is here, and Bryan Knowles is here with us today. And if you are watching us on Twitch or YouTube, please make sure to make comments. Excuse me. Make comments, ask questions as we talk about the NFC South. We're doing another free agency and offseason preview, division by division, and today is the NFC South, and that means we are going deep into cap hell. This is the Hades of the salary cap, where the NFC South, like, you have to fight your way out of salary cap hell over and over and over and over again, and
pushing the boulder up the mountain.
Basically,
next
yes.
to Mickey Loomis.
So, thank you to everybody who's watching and listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the show, especially if you're listening afterwards on the Football Outsiders Podcast Network. Give us a review if you haven't yet to help people find the show. Tell your friends about the show. We want them watching and listening too, so we can all talk football together every week. But let's get to our friends in the NFC South. And we're going to start with the team that won the division and has the most free agents. If you have been watching or listening to, well, especially if you've been watching these shows, you know that we produce these graphics with the top 5 free agents to be for each team. If we bring up the graphic for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you'll notice I did the top 10 free agents to be, and I didn't even get to all of the major ones. There is no, I mean, you know, there are no depth guys here. There's no Giovanni Bernard here. There's no William Golston here. There's no Steve McClendon. Like O.J. Howard is not on this list. Like, they have a lot of free agents. You also may have heard that the greatest player in the history of the National Football League is also going to be making bad movies instead of playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, what is he doing? A road trip movie?
It's apparently based on a true story about women who road tripped to see Brady in the 2017 Super Bowl, which I'm going to assume, since they want it to have a happy ending, that means the Super Bowl from after the 2016 season. I'm assuming they're talking about the Falcons 28-3 comeback Super Bowl.
And Brady's playing himself, I take it, not one of the women?
I'm sure he's playing himself for about 3 minutes at the end of the movie. That's going to be my guess.
He would have made a good Fast and Furious. Actually, Gronk would make a better Fast and Furious gang person. Tom Brady would make a good It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Somebody put out a tweet today that was like, one of these tight ends has to go. And it was a picture of Gronk, Kittle, Kelsey, and Tim Tebow. Like, well, if you're talking about playing quality, then the answer is Tebow. If you're talking about who would be fun at a party, then I think the answer is Tebow. Yeah. If you're talking about who would be good in the WWE, the answer is definitely Tebow. So if you want to know who would be good in the next Fast and the Furious movie from between Kittle, Kelsey, and Gronk and Tebow, the answer is Gronk, Kittle, or Kelsey, not Tebow.
No, I think they are a gang of street racers there. They work to get you put all 3 of them in. You get Kittle, Gronk, and Kelsey in there.
Tebow's all about family.
He is about family, but not
he's about family.
As you've seen in the commercials, he doesn't know how to drive around a curve. So, Tampa Bay is currently $1 million over the cap, according to overthecap.com, but they can get to $68 million under the cap with simple restructures. They can. That is actually 8th in the NFL.
Right.
They can restructure Shaq Barrett. They can restructure Donovan Smith. They can restructure Levante David. They can restructure Vita Vea. Mm-hmm. Most of those guys get them between $8 and $10 million. It pushes more money down the line to pay for last year's Super Bowl. But oh my God, everybody on this team is a freaking free agent. And by the way, there's no quarterback. And I mean, no quarterback. I mean, not only is Brady retired now, Gabbert is technically a free agent.
Yeah.
So Bruce Arians with his, we've never seen Blaine Gabbert play for a good team. You never know talk. Like Gabbert's not even technically on your roster right now.
Right.
The Buccaneers are kind of in a road diverge of the yellow wood moment, and this is the Robert Frost season, because they can either let everyone go or most people go and see what they've got in Kyle Trask and kind of use this season to kind of absorb some of this salary cap hit and set themselves up for the future. And in the NFC South, that might still win the division. Or they can just push all this stuff in the future, get the best quarterback out that they can find, bring everyone back, and just roll it back one more year and just blow 2025 up and just have no roster that season.
Right.
I mean, I think the first one, I think they don't win the division. If they let everybody go and they just, at that point you try to trade Levante David for something, you really rebuild. They could go into a serious major rebuilding year because so many people are leaving. The other one, which is get a somewhat passable quarterback and try to win what looks like the worst division in the NFL right now, is definitely doable, but what you get for that is, I guess, a ticket to the tournament without a very good chance to win it. I mean, You still have a chance, but
go out there and get hammered by the Rams as your
yeah. I'm not really looking forward to a 10-7 Bucs team led by Jimmy Garoppolo losing to. I'm still going to stand for them here, the Dallas Cowboys in the first round.
Yeah, and you mentioned all the simple extensions. This is going to come up a recurring theme, I think, in this episode. You mentioned a lot of 30-something guys. Okay, you're talking about like moving Levante David money forward into the future. There were a couple others. There are guys in there like Vita Vea I would put an extension in front of, but you're putting a lot of money into a lot of older players moving forward with that, and that's not necessarily ideal for, no matter how we slice this, it's going to be, well, the end is coming soon, whether it's this year is the end or 2023 is the end, 2024 is the end. You don't want to be paying for guys way past their prime in any of those years.
Another variable here is how much longer does Bruce Arians really want to coach the team? Because if Bruce Arians is only planning on sticking around for 2 or 3 more years, push all the money in the future. That's fine. Let that be someone else's problem. Let's compete this year. I'll give me that wild card spot. Give me that divisional spot, and we'll see what happens from there. And fixing it will be someone else's problem.
Right.
But that sounds like a more realistic possibility. Bruce Arians decides he's got 2 more years. Let's push everything to the future. Let's try to win in 2022 and 2023, and then I'm retiring, and we blow it up.
I don't know. Light makes a lot of these decisions, and he's in for the long haul at GM. This isn't like a coach GM who can kind of do things.
That's also true. That is also true.
And you push all these things around. Just about everybody on this list that we're seeing here is gone. Godwin is gone. There's no way they're going to move things around to kind of return him. Obviously, you're not going to mess around with the running backs. Obviously, Ndamukong Suh's going to go to the highest bidder. I can't imagine Gronk coming back without Brady.
I find the idea that Gronk is even thinking about still playing a surprise. Like I thought when he came back, when Brady goes, he goes.
Right. Yeah. Right. So maybe you put an offer in front of Carlton Davis, a little bit younger guy. You can bring him, but everything you see here looks like it's gone. And when you go back to the second tier, there's a strong roster still left behind. It's not a roster you're going to do much more than win 9-10 games. And
there are not clear replacements for most of these players. There's Keyshawn Vaughn could play running back.
Right.
And there's Joe Tryon Shoyinka. Joe Tryon is an easy replacement for Jason Pierre-Paul. But with the Ndamukong Suh and William Golston both being free agents, that's both of your 5 tech ends.
Right.
Carlton Davis is a free agent. There's not really, you only have 2 other cornerbacks, really.
Right.
I mean, look at what happened to them this year with cornerback. They don't want to have to go down into the depths. And, oh, by the way, Richard Sherman is also a free agent.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no tight ends because the one tight end they have left would be Cameron Brate, and Brate is apparently a cut candidate at a $5 million cap number. So that would leave them with no tight ends.
Also, we don't really know anything about their 2021 draft class because most of them didn't get much of a chance to play. So maybe they're very confident that, I don't know, Robert Hainsley can step in and play starting center or something here. We don't know because we didn't get to see any of these guys.
Right.
So,
except for Tryon.
No, yes. It's going to be very interesting because they have the most options, I think, of any of the teams in this division, and it's going to be really interesting to see which direction they decide to pull in.
Yeah, this really seems to me like all the guys that you can do a restructure on who are under whatever 28 and good, you do that, you get yourself cap compliant, you get yourself a little bit of wiggle room that you can make some offers to some of these free agents, maybe 1-year deals, whatever, and then you really try to take a logical approach to your quarterback situation. You've got sort of a grace period. You won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. Everybody knows your situation. If you're farting in Trubisky or you're somebody like that for a year while you're trying to come up with a better plan, everybody there, no one's going to lose their job there over that. So,
do you think you go bigger than Trubisky? Do you think they go after like Garoppolo?
I don't think Garoppolo makes sense for the Buccaneers specifically. They need a Garoppolo type, makes a lot of sense. But if you were fun to find a quarterback for Bruce Arians, 5 yards and over the middle is probably the exact wrong kind of guy to get.
Right. In other words, when you say a Garoppolo type, you mean Garoppolo's like sort of contract and trade status type, not his. Yeah. You don't want a quarterback that has the skills of Garoppolo, but you want someone who's in his sort of career time period.
Yeah, his career time period, his contract, his general level of overall talent, just a different set of specific skills.
Right. And that eliminates Garoppolo because of the downfield style of the offense. I think it eliminates Bridgewater really, although Bridgewater threw downfield pretty well.
A lot last year, Bridgewater threw.
Yeah, I don't want that to be the centerpiece of what he's doing. It takes Mariota. Mariota's getting a lot of buzz as a guy you could grab. That takes him out of the equation. That's why I say Trubisky, because he can kind of throw deep, So
here's a name. How about free agent quarterback Jameis Winston?
Yes.
Right. It would fit what they want to do, right?
It makes an alarming amount of sense, and it would be the most hilarious option. So that is what I'm pulling for.
Really run it back. Run it all the way back.
Well, that is a clear transition moment for us to get into the New Orleans Saints, isn't it? So let's talk about the New Orleans Saints, because the New Orleans Saints, on their list of big free agents, the number one guy I listed was, I don't know if you've heard of this gentleman, Jameis Winston, their starting quarterback. Obviously, look, Teron Armstead is the stud at his position compared to these other guys, but quarterback is the most important position. And Winston, right, they were nowhere near as good once Winston got injured last year. So Winston is the biggest free agent. And New Orleans, as we all know, is basically the GDP of China over the cap.
Yep.
75, 80, 85?
75 million over the cap right now as we speak.
They can get under with restructures, according to overthecap.com, but they would have to restructure so many guys.
I went through the calculator and found out you could actually easily get under the cap if you restructure Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Andrews Pete, Cameron Jordan, and Bradley Roby. That's all. You're just paying them for the next 25 years, and you're right under the salary cap and ready to compete.
One of whom does not want to play for you anymore.
Yep.
One of whom just punched somebody in a bar and is a running back.
Yep.
One of whom is Taysom freaking Hill, and he's third on the list of bad ideas.
Yep.
So what you're saying, Brian, because Brian and I have been going back and forth a little bit all over the place on this, is you've got to do some of these restructures. Like a guy like Roby might make sense, for example. But then you have to do cuts of veterans as well to have it make any kind of sense.
Yeah.
And who are we thinking of in terms of? I think Malcolm Jenkins off the top of my head would be a cut.
Yeah, we're kind of going back and forth. We've been going back and forth about how bad the Saints situation actually is, whether it's terrible or extraordinarily terrible. I think that's the difference we have here.
Right. You're like the token person going against me, or I'm the token person going against you. Because
everyone saw, the Saints are $80 million over the cap. They're terrible. I blow everything up. Everything's going to be a disaster. And that's slightly overstating it because they did plan for this. This is the situation they wanted to be in. For God knows what reason, but this is why they wanted to be here. And so people saw, you can restructure so many of these deals. They're going to be fine. Well, that's an overreaction to what's going on because, as you say, you're going to have to restructure players who you probably don't want to be paying in 3 years. So I think what makes me think they're in better situation than another team in the division, who we're going to get to, is the fact that it is a talented roster. They were in the playoffs up until halftime of Week 18. So you have a core of a team can get there and win some games in a bad division. But do you really want to be spending so much money in the future on a team that might come close to making the playoffs, and your quarterback is Taysom Hill?
I feel like they keep kicking this can down the road. They can do it. Like, they can just keep restructuring guys every year and just keep kicking money down the road. But what that's a recipe for is it's a recipe for a team that wins 8 or 9 games every year.
They have to pay the piper eventually, and it makes a lot of sense to do it this year.
They win 8 or 9 games if they find a quarterback, which does not exist on the roster right now. And they draft exceptionally for the next couple of years, which they haven't done a lot in the draft recently. Obviously, they gave up a first-round pick to go out and get Davenport a couple of years ago, et cetera. It's a recipe for a team that's winning 6 or 7 games every year, unless the Panthers just go completely belly up and give you 2 wins a year.
Do you think that they can restructure enough guys to get Winston back on the roster and make him the starter next year?
No. That's your problem, because Winston, I think you need $10 million as a low ball, with everybody searching and their mother searching for a quarterback right now. That isn't going to cost a lot. I think that's going to be $10 million. So now we're up at $85 million that you have to put in place. And if you do that, you have cut somebody significant. And you don't have receivers. So there's Traquan. There's your number 1 receiver.
Well, there's Michael Thomas, unless you figure out a way to trade or cut him. He's your number 1 receiver. After that, there's nothing.
Yeah, cutting Michael Thomas doesn't make any sense. That only frees up $2 million of cap space this year. If you're getting rid of him, it's got to be in a trade. Saying, hey, here's a top 5 receiver who might be hurt and never play again. What do you want to get for him? If they can get a Stephon Diggs kind of deal for him and get like a high draft pick to let someone else take the gamble that he's going to be, Michael Thomas again, I think you do that. You do that without thinking about it.
You do. And again, all these guys, like you mentioned, the restructuring. It's like I said, Ramczyk, restructure Ramczyk, move that money. That's a perfectly good move. All these 30-something, all these guys that you are pushing down the line, they're in decline. Cameron Hayward's a phenomenal player. I was at the Super Bowl. He was standing there with a microphone in his hand. He is ready. He has got one step in a booth somewhere. The moment he slips down the line, I don't know what the status of DeMario Davis is moving forward. You're talking about a 33-year-old linebacker. He's one of your starters. Okay, so.
Malcolm Jenkins, like you said, Jenkins is obviously not going to be part of the next great Saints team.
Right. These are starters. There's not a lot on your bench. There is no money to get another human.
The big thing is the contract they gave to Taysom Hill puts them in such a bind. If they are right and Taysom Hill takes the rare 33-year-old leap and becomes the quarterback, they are actually going to be okay. Probably not much better than okay, but okay. They have so much money on a position that it doesn't work. Taysom Hill is not a good NFL starting quarterback. He's better than some of the memes when they first were using him, but he's not someone you can push all the money forward with.
User title asks, didn't they restructure Taysom Hill during the season already?
They extended him.
They did. I think to sort of create the situation where they could do this. And it's like you're putting money into a bad car at this point. It's like I still have 26 car payments on the car I wrecked. You know what I'm going to do to solve that problem? I'm going to extend the payments out another year. That is so much of what the Saints are doing. It's like a revolving debt nightmare. So we can talk about how they can keep their house, and how they can get food on the table, but we can't talk about moving forward and being successful in any meaningful way with this team.
I feel a little sorry for Dennis Allen, because when Allen was the head coach of the Raiders, he went 8-28, but he was coming off of a team in a terrible salary cap situation after years of overspending, and they didn't really have a quarterback. So now, of course, he gets a second job of being a head coach, and oh, jeez.
Yeah, Colonel Kurt says, okay or a little better than okay may win this division. I mean, that's true. If you want to shoot for that, you can shoot for that, but how many years will that be the case? And so you go into the first round of the playoffs so you can lose to whichever team finished second in the NFC West.
Yeah, that's the meme of every team. But if the Buccaneers want to do some goofy stuff, they can win this division. If the Saints max it out and Taysom Hill has like some sort of, Jalen Hurts-esque year, you can win the division. If the Falcons go all in, and we'll talk about them in a minute, they could possibly win this division. And if the Panthers trade everything for Kirk Cousins and everybody gets healthy, they could possibly win this. But that's your absolute, all four of these teams, that's your ceiling. Your ceiling is you beat the other crappy teams and get the hell beat out of you by your Cowboys.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the Falcons, let's get to them. The Atlanta Falcons, who are also $13 million over the cap, according to overthecap.com. They can be only 12 million under with restructures. They do not have a lot of players they can restructure, but they don't have a ton of big free agents either.
They also
they Cordarrelle Patterson. I got to think that Cordarrelle Patterson's going to be like, well, this is the team that figured out how to use me. I guess they do have a lot of free agents, but a lot of them are backups. I didn't include here the punter and kicker are free agents.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. The Falcons need everything, and they have no money to pay for anybody, which in my opinion makes that worse than the Saints, because
essentially they have no wide receivers because Calvin Ridley wants out and Russell Gage is a free agent, and there's like nobody behind them.
Yeah, I went through the roster, and I think there are 6 players on the Falcons who you have. You're good at tight end with Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be nice and say you have 3 offensive linemen in Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, and Matt Hennessy. Right. Then you've got Grady Jarrett. And you got AJ Terrell.
Yep.
That's it. You need everything else. Even you need a quarterback at some point because Matt Ryan is getting old and he's going to be $50 million cap hit next season. You need a running back because Cordarrelle Patterson's a free agent. You need 1 to 3 wide receivers depending on the various status of all their players. You need 2 edge rushers. You need 2 inside linebackers. You need 2 cornerbacks to go behind Terrell. You need 2 safeties. And you need your kicker and punter because they're both free agents. You need everything. And you have $12.9 million of workable cap space if you extend everybody.
And by the way, you also may be completely deluded as to how good you are because this team, as we know, totally overperformed its play-by-play, was ridiculously good in close games last year, 30th in DVOA despite being 7-10. Like, they are pretty rock bottom other than, well, I mean, we can argue about Matt Ryan because I know, Mike, you feel like the Roethlisberger canary in the coal mine has sung already with Ryan.
Yes. And I don't think, I was looking at it, we can't accordion file Matt Ryan's contract any further, even if we want to, can we? Everything's sitting in bonus money right now.
The only player they can really move get any cap space is Grady Jarrett, who's one of their 6 good players. Ryan and Jake Matthews alone make up 35% of the salary cap, and over half of that is bonus money, which can't be moved.
They can't move that in any way. And even if they could move it, it'd be chaotic to do such a thing for Matt Ryan. You mentioned Cordarrelle Patterson. There's going to be offers. There's going to be big offers for Cordarrelle Patterson. If I'm a
Deebo Samuel.
Next Deebo Samuel, or it was like, I'm going to get this return man who can do this stuff. Yeah. The idea that a team like the Chargers got cap space isn't going to say, we can find 15 different roles for him. Yeah, somebody's going to make that offer for him, thinking they're going to forget Deebo, they're going to get Cordarrelle Patterson. So, yeah, he's gone. You're talking me into them being they're in worse real life. They're worse shape than the Saints. I think if I isolated it at salary cap, which is kind of pedantic, I would still say the Saints are worse, but they're just in worse shape.
Yeah.
There is not a lot that's going to be left here.
Right. And it's hard for them to even clean up and start over because of the Ryan situation.
Yeah, they're stuck because, in my opinion, no team in this division has their 2023 quarterback on the roster at this point in time, and that includes Matt Ryan. Because after this season, you're going to save about $30 million in cap space if you cut him after 2022, and unless he has an incredible throwback season, unless 2016 Matt Ryan is coming to that door, I think you have to do that just to get your team back into financial health.
And that means you draft a quarterback in the first round. That's why I'm going to be mocking until the cows come home. They just simply have to do this. They can't come to the end of the season like, let's do Ryan for another year because he threw for another 4,600 yards and it looked kind of sort of okay at times against bad opponents. They've got to do that. And once you do that, you can't do anything else because that's your first round pick. You do not have any flexibility to sign anybody, and that's that.
Well, Colonel Kurtz, who is a Falcons fan, says, please no quarterback. So,
okay.
I mean, it's not a good year for quarterbacks, but you're right. Like, there needs to be some sort of heir apparent in Atlanta.
Right. Like, I don't know if Josh Rosen is the answer there. And I'm not going to put words in Colonel Kurtz's mouth. I think a lot of not in round one, then none, probably Colonel. I think most Falcons fans think they can get another year or two out of Matt Ryan. I just, it's at best, it's incredibly
right. If the off ramp is clearly there after this year, then what you're getting out of Matt Ryan is one more year. Because if the off ramp is clearly there, they're going to need to take it.
Yes, and I love the idea Colonel Kurtz said about the Saints should sign Cordarrelle and throw him in the with Taysom in the backfield with a wing T. And that would be fun if there was any money in New Orleans to sign a Cordarrelle. But there is no money in New Orleans to go out and sign that guy to do something fun. Could the Eagles do that? I would find that entertaining as heck here in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, but I don't think the Saints can do that.
Yeah. Joey Suck says this division might be early 2000s NFC West bad.
Let's not speak things into existence we can't unspeak.
Jeff Fisher poofs out of a bag somewhere.
CCX3 said, "What does Ridley get them?" It's interesting because it's hard to discuss mental health issues because I don't know what Ridley's current mental health situation is. There's a psychologist out there who has a much better idea of it than I do. Does he want to come back and play? Was the issue that he didn't want to play football, or he wasn't in the right mindset to play football, or was it that he didn't want to play for the Falcons specifically? Like, I don't really know what the situation is, but if he's ready to play, the talent is there. That they could definitely, I would think, get a second rounder for him.
Yeah, they could get a mid-round pick. They could get a day 2 pick, I think, for no problem, if everyone's convinced this is good for him. And we just don't have enough information to speculate on that.
Right. And frankly, we don't know Michael Thomas's overall situation either, which puts him kind of in a mystery box as well.
Yeah. Right, but it's a little easier to talk about physical injuries with Thomas than it is whatever was the deal with Ridley this year.
Yeah.
All right, so the poor Falcons. Let's talk about the last team in this poor, unfortunate division, and that is the Carolina Panthers, who are $7 million under the cap, but can be $40 million under the cap with restructures, and they have some interesting free agents. There's definitely I keep talking about some red on the board. Like if you look at our lads, there's definitely some red on the board, but most of their top players are not free agents, although Jermaine Carter was a huge part of their defense this year. Hassan Reddick was a huge part of their defense this year. This is a team that seems to be running in place. They can't really believe that Darnold is still the future. It's a shock that they believed that he was the future a year ago. The defense is probably good enough to win the division if there's a real quarterback here, because the receivers are good. They have good receivers, DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall and Robbie Anderson. And
they don't have an offensive quarterback or an offensive line. So it's really hard to get behind them unless they get both of those pieces. And they don't have any day 2 draft picks because their round 2 pick is gone for Sam Darnold. The round 3, I think, is the CJ Henderson trade. They have nothing in the middle of the round. So they can't. So because I've been thinking a Garoppolo type would make a lot of sense in Carolina, but they don't have the right picks unless they want to deal a first round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo, which everyone do not do that. But they don't have any way to get someone like that in. So I don't know what the answer is for them at quarterback.
And they want one so bad there. It's like broadcasting all over Jump Street that they're trying to make something like this happen. And that means like McCaffrey might be like I don't know if he even moves the needle for any of these teams. Like you're not going to trade McCaffrey to the 49ers. Like, right, whatever. It's just,
well, we were saying yesterday with running backs, the way it is with these injured running backs is they're worth more to you than what you can get for them, because what you can get for them is not that high because they keep getting injured. So nobody wants to give up a lot of draft value for McCaffrey at that price coming off 2 years of injuries.
Right. He's a sunk cost, whereas at least you can still be getting your value out of him. So Reddick is going to go. He's going to be like the belle of the ball in free agency.
Yeah, that's a guy who really discovered himself late in his career. He really, all of a sudden, the last 2 years came along and been fantastic.
Yeah, they made him a full-time edge rusher. Early in his career, he was positionless. Let's move him all over creation here, and that didn't work. Pin your ears back and go. That's the thing. Cardinals let him walk. The Panthers now have no choice to let him walk. And any contender that's got a few dollars to run together is going to be making a big run at Reddick.
Like, I can't imagine that Carolina, like, if you're Stephon Gilmore, why do you want to go back to Carolina? Why don't you want to go play for a contender somewhere? Like,
Remember, you just brought up the Henderson trade. Remember when it made sense, like last September, for like a week for them to bring guys in?
Yeah, the 3-0 Panthers.
They really talked themselves into that 3-0 start, man. They really did. And like, yeah, we're bringing in assets. And now it's like, we can't get rid of them fast enough.
Yeah, like the trade that would make a lot of sense. If they could send a second-round pick and Darnold to San Francisco for Garoppolo, you give Darnold one more chance to recover somewhere else. You probably have to eat some of Darnold's contract. That makes a lot of sense. They don't have any mid-round draft picks. They traded away all of their assets to be able to do anything, going all in on Sam Darnold being the guy.
Patrick Seeley says the Panthers should just tank and clear the cap for bad quarterbacks for the next draft. Should just tank and clear the cap is the story of the entire NFC South right now.
Yes. They're all trying to get to last place. They all clear everything, and they're all like trying to lose the game against each other.
It's a prisoner's dilemma because whatever team decides they want to have the most trouble next year will win this division in 2022. Just who wants to put themselves in the bad situation next year? Because any of them can do it.
Hey, I will point out 2 4th seeds just did make the Super Bowl. So, maybe there's excitement about being a 4th seed.
Well, Rule can't tank because he'll get fired.
Yep.
Okay. Arians could tank because no one's going to get fired, but he won't. I don't know. It's looking at Dennis Allen. He's the guy who can just go out there and tank and go back to being a defensive coordinator anyway. So, but no one's going to do that. But it is an interesting question. Like, what if all these guys just sort of give up and everyone cuts salary? Like how would this shake out?
Wait for that 5-12 4th seed to go into the playoffs, right?
Right. Or as Colonel Kurt says, they can just trade McCaffrey to Cincinnati so that Cincinnati can then put in Samaje Perine on 3rd and 1, right?
I was liking C-Mac to Cincinnati. That would be fun to watch.
I did discover, I had no idea, but Ezer Kamara from last year's Hard Knocks is apparently in Carolina now.
I don't remember him. Who's that?
He was on Hard Knocks. He was like the edge rusher from Ivory Coast who wanted to make the team.
Oh, cool.
Did you watch any of the Indianapolis mid-season Hard Knocks?
No, I don't have HBO.
Yeah, I have HBO and I didn't watch it. I've got too much going on during the season to watch Hard Knocks.
I think they discovered that. I am curious because, I'm sure they had to edit around an elephant in that particular room a lot of times.
Well, yes. Speaking of rolling things back, says useful title, Teddy Bridgewater to Carolina.
Bridgewater, do you have any sense? I'll throw it to you, Brian. Any sense of where Bridgewater fits in this grand circus of?
I think Bridgewater is the he's the goat under the behind the third door. Like we tried to get we tried to get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. We couldn't do that. We tried to get Kirk Cousins and that didn't happen. We tried to get Jimmy Garoppolo. We didn't have anything to do with that. I guess we'll settle for. Do we like Jameis Winston or Teddy Bridgewater? Well, what's your flavor of uninspiring quarterback do you want, right? do you want the chuck it downfield and deal with interceptions, or do you want the 2-inch passes?
Yeah.
CO the Legend is definitely late to the stream, asking if the NFC South is potentially the most chaotic division where all 4 teams could possibly have a new starting quarterback. Yeah, we said earlier, none of these teams currently have the starting quarterback for 2023 on the roster. Because of the fact that the Falcons have the off-ramp for Ryan after one more year. And yeah, this division looks terrible. It looks like whichever team decides that they want to kick their salary cap down the road farther gets to win this division and be the 4th seed and lose to whoever finished second in the NFC West in the first round of next year's playoffs.
I'm not sure I would call it chaotic because that chaos implies a bit of energy and movement going on. I think this is going to be kind of a wet flop of a division to a certain extent.
It's neutral evil. I think its alignment is neutral evil.
All right. I'm actually going to finish things up with that because, that thing about the NFC South is there's so little promise here. This has been, I think, our quickest divisional show because what is there to say? It's a wreck. Everything's a wreck here.
And it's like, we'll know more in a few weeks. Guys will get franchised. The contracts will be restructured, and we'll have a little sense of it. But it's still, when free agency starts, everybody's going to be sitting on their hands in this particular division.
Yeah,
So,
no one really has money. Even if they restructure guys, no one really has money. They're lucky if they have money to bring back any of their own guys.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for the show. Thank you all for watching and listening to the NFC South free agency preview. Bryan, thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you for joining me. And to next week, Mike and I will be in Indianapolis. And therefore, Scott Spratt will be hosting the show. So join Scott Spratt next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern with Rob Weintraub, and they will be talking about the AFC North, where Rob can gush about his beloved Cincinnati Bengals. And
complain about calls in the Super Bowl. I can hardly wait.
Scott can respond by reminding him that the Baltimore Ravens had a ridiculously bad record in close games, a ridiculous number of injuries, and have the easiest projected schedule in the NFL for next year. Also, join the Splash Play guys tomorrow at 2:30 for more fantasy football talk and maybe even a little USFL talk. Who knows?
The 80s are back.
The 80s are back, baby.
I feel young again.
In POG form. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Again, next Wednesday, Scott Spratt and Rob Weintraub, 1 p.m. Enjoy your weekends, folks. We're out of here.